Microjig, maker of the gripper. Work safer, work smarter.
I have a small confession to make. When I first purchased my joiner over a decade ago, I never bothered to check to make sure that the infeed and outfeed table were perfectly parallel with each other. I just assumed that when I bought it that they set it correctly at the factory, and I just kind of went from there. I've never had any problems using this joiner. It's been working okay. But it's always been in the back of my mind if whether or not the two tables are parallel to each other. It's always kind of bothered me just a little bit not knowing. In order to check for that, it's pretty popular on the internet and YouTube. You'll find some videos where people will use a straight edge and feeler gauges to check to make sure that the two tables are parallel to each other. I don't own a straight edge that I would trust enough to use it for something like that, where you're measuring within thousandths of an inch, and I never bothered to buy one. But I've often wondered if it would be possible to do this, to check for this, make sure they're parallel to each other using a dial indicator. And I've been thinking about this the last few days, and I came up with a solution, and this is it. And it works, and I've actually checked my joiner, and my outfeed table was down by 27 thousandths of an inch, and I've already corrected it. But what I want to show you guys today is how I made this jig and go through the process of using it. The first thing I'm going to do is rip a piece of 4/4 stock to about 1.5 inches wide, and the length of this piece of stock is really going to depend on the length of your joiner. This will make more sense later. I have a piece of poplar that's 4.5 inches square, and it's 3/4 of an inch thick. And these little pieces that we just cut on the crosscut sled are going to be feet, and I'm going to glue one in each corner. Because I don't feel like waiting for the glue to dry, on this one I'm going to pick up from the one I already made, and I disassembled it. So the next thing you want to do after you glue on your feet and the glue is dried is you want to flatten all these feet. So I used a granite surface plate, and I took a piece of sandpaper and placed it on top of the granite surface plate, and then just sand the feet so they're nice and flat. And if you want to, you can take a pencil and make a mark on each foot. And as you sand it, if all the pencil disappears during the sanding process, you'll know that all of the feet have been sanded and it should be flat at that point. Now you want to pre-drill and screw the foot assembly board to that 4/4 board that we ripped earlier. Before you can attach the dial indicator, you need to know where the placement is going to be for the hole to attach the dial indicator. Now with the feet side of the alignment tool on one of the tables of the joiner, you're going to want to use a weight so that you can elevate the opposite side of the alignment tool off of the other table. Now once you do that, you're going to want to take your dial indicator and place it against the end of the 4/4 board and mark for a hole to pre-drill for a screw. My dial indicator didn't fit, so I had to attach a block of wood to make room for the screw hole. You might not have to do that for your dial indicator. It kind of depends on the model of dial indicator that you're using. So once you're all set, just place the dial indicator on the end of the alignment tool, make a mark with a pencil, pre-drill, and then we can attach it with a screw. In order to make this a little easier to understand, it might help to think of the infeed and the outfeed table of the joiner as planes in space. And what we're trying to do is get both planes parallel to each other. And it also might help to think back to your high school geometry class when you learned about planes. And if you remember, it only takes 3 points in space to define a plane, as long as the points are not on the same line. It only takes 3 to define a plane. So all we have to do is make sure that 3 points on one plane match up with 3 points on the other plane, and we can check that the two planes are parallel to each other. And that's essentially what we're going to do here. I have my magnetic base of my dial indicator on the infeed side of my joiner and the dial indicator on the outfeed side. I have the plunger tip on a Sharpie mark. I have one here and I have a Sharpie mark here. Now, if I zero out my dial indicator bezel on one of the spots and push the dial indicator and magnetic base back to the other spot, if I don't see any deviation in the needle, that means that this line and essentially this line that was defined by pushing the magnetic base back, both those lines are parallel to each other. Mine is off by 0.02 of an inch, and honestly, I'm not gonna worry about that. Now, in order to define a plane, remember we need a third point, so that's what we'll measure next. I have the feet side of my new alignment jig on the in-feed side of my joiner, and on the out-feed side, I have the dial indicator and plunger. Now I have the weight on the in-feed side pushing the feet down so that it doesn't go crashing forward. Now, in order to use this, you want to zero your dial indicator at the back position, and it will slide the whole alignment tool down to the other side of the table. And if we don't see any deviation in the needle, that means that this line and this line are parallel to each other. And because we already know that these 2 points and these 2 points are parallel to each other, we've defined the 2 planes, and we can say that both planes are parallel to each other. So let's see how we do here. I will tell you that I've already gone through the alignment process with my joiner, and originally my joiner was off by 27 thousandths of an inch. So I've already shimmed the outfeed side. My joiner slides on dovetailed ways. So when you have dovetailed ways for your joiner, you're gonna wanna use shims, and you're gonna wanna shim the outfeed side of your joiner. So let's see how this does. And it measures 0.03 of an inch. So as I mentioned already, my outfeed table was actually sagging down by 27 thousandths of an inch when I checked it with my new alignment tool. So I took a soda can, an aluminum soda can, and I cut out 2 shims, one for one side and one for the other. There are 2 bolts in the back of the joiner that you have to loosen, and then you can lift the outfeed table and then slide the shims underneath the dovetailed way. Originally, I just tried 1 shim on each side, and I got the error down to around 13 thou. So I doubled up, and I got it down to 0.03 of an inch, and I'm happy with that. So yeah, another reason to go buy another dial indicator. How cool is that? So if you've been watching my videos and you still haven't gone out and bought a dial indicator, do yourself a favor and go get one. You can get them pretty cheap. I think this one was made in China, and it was, I don't know, it was $15 probably for the dial indicator. You can spend a lot of money on dial indicators, but for woodworking, I really don't think it's absolutely necessary. This one's good to 0.01 of an inch. So yeah, so put your feeler gauges away and put your straight edges away when you're checking for parallelism between the in-feed table and the out-feed table. I'm sorry if this video seemed rushed. I just thought of this and I wanted to get it out to you guys as quick as I could. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below, and show your support by joining my Patreon community. And you'll see a link in the description below to learn more about that. And subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thanks for watching, guys.